So if we start out with you naming your title and where you work.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. My name is Kerry Huang. I'm Chief of Staff to the Brand and Impact SVP at PANGAIA, and excited to be here.
And Kerry, tell us a little bit about what is PANGAIA?
Good question. So PANGAIA, what we call ourselves, is a direct-to-consumer material science company. And what that means is we bring different types of textile innovations as well as patents to the world through everyday products. So for example, we have a product coming out that's made out of fruit and plant fiber, out of banana and pineapple leaves, and using that in fibers of fruits to replace cotton. And our mission essentially is to introduce these new technologies to showcase to the consumer as well as the industry that you can choose more sustainable alternatives. And ultimately, hopefully, we will be an earth positive company in the next few years.
What guides how PANGAIA works with sustainability and communicates its sustainable efforts?
Yeah, so I'd say PANGAIA was born out of the idea to be impact oriented and to give back essentially more than we take from the earth. And so our team is solely driven by the mission to prove that sustainability can be cool and widely adopted. And at its core, I mean, a lot of people actually don't pronounce the name correctly, but PAN means all inclusive. In terms of continent, people, race, religion, and Gaia means Mother Earth. So we hope to have this mission of communicating that we're all inclusive and that we want to be a sustainable company. Something that's interesting is that our logo is actually made of 7 different circles, and each represents, for example, an impact pillar that we have. So a lot of this guides how we communicate and think about impact. Another element is that we always talk about this triangle of design, purpose, and innovation. So in every department, when we're working on a product or designing and merchandising, or whether it's an R&D and they're looking for the next innovation, they think about how can we design minimally and in the most sustainable way. You'll see that a lot of our products don't have frills, or our hoodies don't have those strings because we think that's not necessary, and let's keep it as simple as possible. Also trying to look into how we can design better for circularity. And then ultimately, when we think of new innovations or new categories, what is the purpose behind it? We always want to introduce it so it solves something, whether in carbon or in other pieces of climate. And then the last piece in innovation is, we want something that's new and different and really adds value, that you can actually use science to make a better difference in the world in fashion.
And you touched a little bit on the product there with the strings and the unnecessary fringes and stuff. And one of the things I've noticed as a consumer is, of course, that you have these your clothing where you write on the clothing what the material is made of. And I think that's a really on point way of communicating actually on your product, what you stand for. Could you talk a little bit about that as an example?
Yeah, that's something I'm actually most excited about. We have this product text block that we call it on all of our products. And it's 1 to 2 sentences that explains what the product is made of. It's made out of organic cotton using less water, et cetera, et cetera. And to me, it's kind of like an analogy to the food industry. You want to be able to read on the nutrition label really quickly what's in your in your food. So why can't we do that also with apparel? The most exciting part is that, normally consumers get really attached to showcasing and showing off a logo like Nike swoosh or whatever it might be. And so even when you can't really read this from afar, it's exciting to see that people want to wear this and show that off. And I think that's a great mental shift as well going forward, that we need to all be more transparent, not only in what we do, but also you can write it on your products. So yeah, this is something I'm really, really proud of and excited about.
So the reaction has actually been great from your consumers. They think it's a cool label to wear.
Yeah, that's what we've heard. And something else that we've done is, we want to understand from our consumers why they purchase our products. So we did a survey a couple months ago, and of all the options we listed of what convinced you to purchase from PANGAIA, the top one was our brand value, so being earth friendly and philanthropic. And that came up above style, above product quality, and even above social media from seeing it on influencer or other consumer. Of course, there's always that behavior action gap, but it's a clear indication that people do buy into the values and want to also improve the world.
And so at PANGAIA, are you looking, of course, to create behavioral change within your customers? I guess when you have such a DNA that's based on sustainability and impact, you are looking to really create change within your consumers. Is that right?
Totally. I think there's two ways we've looked at it. One is obviously because we sell directly to consumers, we really want to shift how they think about sustainability. One of the quotes we talked a lot about at Global Fashion Agenda, which is a nonprofit focused on sustainability and fashion, is if you can change fashion, then you can change anything. And I would say that PANGAIA is more of a material science company that does way more than just clothing and fashion. But I really like that quote because it shows if you can push consumers to think differently and see that there are more sustainable alternatives in what they wear and in what seems to be cool, then you can change so much more. But I would also say that another goal is to push the industry to do better, because there's so much more that needs to be done. And that's the biggest step change. And so we've talked a lot with different brands and other partners, and we're building out a B2B arm to provide more sustainable solutions that they can also use in their products. But I think it's exciting to say, hey, look, there are innovations out there. Like, what else can you guys come up with to make the world a better place?
Yeah, so it's about today, of course, is all about sparking sustainable change. So this is within both a consumer perspective, but also within an industry. I think that's really, really cool. So personally, I think it's interesting because you work so much within fashion, which is, we all know, a big sinner in the whole climate game. And you've been in fashion, working with sustainability and fashion for so long. How do you personally, with the journey that you've been on as a consumer and as part of this industry, think that we can close the gap between inspiring people and actually acting out?
Yeah, that's a really good and tough question, because I would say a few years ago when I was also working consulting, was flying a lot, was, not as conscious of sustainability and how important it is. But in the recent years, obviously also with the most recent IPCC report, is we need to do something now and really, really urgently. So for me, what I've done is educating myself. I try to read as many books as possible to understand the situation, talk to friends about it, create different Slack groups with them, and just say, what can we personally do? I've also, if I'm purchasing a product, I look at the options available and say, if there's a more sustainable alternative, might as well go and look and purchase that. And then I also think about how I can be really, really minimal. So I've set a goal to not purchase more than a certain amount of products or services throughout the year, just because I think we can live with much less. And we were talking about this earlier, went on a hiking trip for 9 to 10 days and had the same outfit every day pretty much, and had a great time, and, didn't really need much to be happy. And then the last piece is, I think, looking more into policy, because there's obviously a few gaps there, but seeing how as a consumer I can get more involved, and also in different regions, and how some countries are more ahead than others. And because I think there's so much more to be done to also support developing countries. So there's so many things that I've been looking into. Still don't have the perfect solution, but all these little steps I think add up.
Nice. And so I think the reason why I reached out to you, of course, is because I think PANGAIA is really good at communicating sustainability in a genuine way. And we talk a lot about, especially with sustainability as a buzzword, that in the sense that it has become a buzzword, there is a lot of greenwashing being attached to it. And I guess in a sense, your sustainability efforts matters, but it's also, if you want to spark sustainable movements, you have to communicate them right. So how do you see that you can communicate sustainability in a genuine way?
Yeah, I would also have to say PANGAIA is not perfect. I'm glad it comes across as that super genuine, and we really, really try. I think the first step is being open and honest. We're all trying to do better and do good, and no one has the perfect 100% sustainable solution. So it's being open about, what are we good at, or what are we really working on at? So for us, it's always about communicating optimism in solutions that we have and the exciting products behind it. But also, we don't have a fully 100% by whatever solution at the moment. We're working on it. So I think that's something that we like to talk about. Other thing I think is living and breathing it, not just communicating it, so that your employees also are proud of it. And when they talk to other people, they're like, yeah, we're really powering this mission. So one example is in each department, what we're trying to do is think more about how you can integrate impact, either through KPIs, through whatever metrics. So even if someone is in, design, and most of the time they're working on different layouts for your clothing, they still think about, okay, how can we make sure it's more sustainable? And that goes all the way through the whole supply chain and go to market line. And I think some other companies have done a great job. Just to call them out, is Allbirds. They, for example, listed carbon calories on most of their shoe products to indicate, this is the amount of carbon that was used to create this product, and we're trying to be better. And they've also sent a note to the industry to say, hey, we'd love to share some of this proprietary information so that you can also be more sustainable. So I think little actions like that isn't just advertising, but just as little actions that really matter. And I think action speaks more than words. So proving it out in different ways can really make your communication more genuine, because it truly is genuine.
And so from what we've spoke on today, how can companies take that first step to kind of like assess how they can do open and honest communication?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple first steps. Is one, internally, the leadership really has to buy into it. Otherwise, none of the team will. So I think it's important that they set the standard and say, of our 5 priorities this year, sustainability is one of them, so that everyone knows that they're championing it. Second is, of course, tactically doing an LCA, life cycle assessment, across all products or services that you have, so you understand the baseline and see what to work on. And then the third is being open and just saying, this is where we are right now. We want to do better, and we're not there yet, but this is our plan. Other companies like Yanni, on their website, they just write, we're not a sustainable company. And then they talk about all the reasons why they're not to the point they want to be. So I think that's a great first step, is just being open and communicating and telling the world where you are right now.
That's very great, like a status quo on where your company is right now and how you can do better for everyone. That's great. Kerry, thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm really happy you could join us here. And thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.